Hello everyone, my name is Adam Lorenzo and I'm the Scrum Master, and I'm here with my team lead, Alicia Briano, and two developers, Carl Weber and Marcus Paul. And we're here to present the Data Architecture Analysis and Mapping Tool. Our client is Joe Patello from South Coast Health. Let's get into it. There is a need right now in the industry for an application that can map two fields together from two different data sources and give a documentation system along with what everything is doing with these mappings. The process that currently exists is taking from two Excel sheets, which you can see up top there's one Excel sheet, and copy and pasting into another to get the mappings that you need for each field from the insurance claims and a database that is currently at South Coast. On the bottom, we're actually changing that to make it so it's a lot neater, organized, and easier to deal with in our application. The problem is, as I said, it's a manual process. You take Excel sheets, copy and paste right next to each other into the cells, make it very unorganized, very cluttered, and there's no real room for documenting everything if you need to ask questions or if you need to see what needs to be done, what has been done, things of that nature. So with that, we have our program, which is combining all of these together. We're having each screen individually. We can have documenting, mappings, workflow, everything that you need that's right now, and putting it in one place instead of having it across the board with Excel sheets, Word documents, other things. Some terminology that we're going to be using is schema, which is a collection of tables in their column information. SQL, structured query language. Source and target, which is the insurance files are the source, and the target is the database that South Coast has. Mapping is the actual setting of the two values that we need for the two different columns. Metadata is the user-entered data that is for the notes, the questions, and for the definitions, for everything for the mappings. In our application, we have these features, and these are the ones that you'll actually see in order. The database connections, which I'll talk about each of these as we go, to give a little bit of background information before we get into the demo showing what everything is. We have the database connections, the import screen, mapping and mapping details screens, table info, and notes and questions. First off, we have the database connections screen, which is, if you don't go through this, you really can't do anything with the program because we need the two different sources, the data sources. And as you see on the left side, this is you create a connection that you need, and you enter in all the information like the connection name, data source, user ID and password if you have one, initial catalog, and the integrated security. Once you add this connection, you close out that screen and you go into connect to the database, which will show all the connections you just added. You need both a source and target before you can do anything. And you click on it, and it'll show you all the information that you entered. You can either double click it to connect to that database, or you can just hit connect up top, and it'll take you into the import screen. Here is where it lists all the tables in that database, and you click on each one individually and add, or you can click on multiple, depends on how you want to do it, and you move it over to the right side, which will show you the selected tables, and these are the tables that you're going to be pulling into your mapping screen, and these are the ones that you're going to be dealing with. Up top, it'll show you what database you're connected to, just to make sure if you leave your computer or something for a little bit and you come back and you don't know what you're doing or where you left off, it shows you where you are. And if you have saved this, it'll clear out the selected table so you don't duplicate it. We currently have it so it won't duplicate, but just in case you don't have to redundantly add things to your tables. From here, you have to save it with a version number, or it will not let you progress, and it'll take you into the mapping screen. Here is the real part of this application that's really just changing the way everything is done. So instead of taking from those two Excel sheets and seeing all your tables on one side and then everything that's with those, we have it so you can see the target fields on the left side. Everything's listed out nice and clear from this is the South Coast database. And on the right column, it shows all the source fields, so everything you pulled in from those insurance claims, It's going to list in drop-down menus, right side by side, so you can map things easily. You don't have any room for error, really, for copy and pasting into the wrong cell if you happen to do that, or anything of that nature that has the user entering data. On the right two columns from there, you can see a little bit more information. It's not really too much, but it shows you if it's active or if what kind of mapping it is. But if you need to get into that, it shows you. You can go into the mapping detail screen. It'll tell you a lot more. Here, you can also choose your two tables. On the top, you see on the left, there's a target table. That's the one that you're going to deal with South Coast database. And on the right side is the source. So depending on what you pulled from your insurance claims, that's going to be loaded into these source fields. From here, if you go into the fields detail screen, this shows you more information about each mapping itself. So from here, you can see what mapping you're in, what you just did on the other screen, and it'll tell you the target table name, the target field, source table, and source field names. A little bit of mapping details. You enter in some information about that. You have the text boxes to enter in anything you need to enter that isn't already a pre-filled or a drop-down selection. We have the mapping types, analysis status, just if it's active or not active, ETL status, and inclusion and exclusion. The only one that needs a little bit more information on it is the inclusion exclusion, which has a criteria of if it's going to be included or excluded. We have the source field definition and a list of fields mapped to the target, which when working, right now it's not implemented as it should, but once it's implemented, it will show everything from other insurance claims. So if you have first name mapped in this with this insurance claim, say it shows how it's member first name, member last name. If it's other things that are labeled differently from other sources, it'll show, okay, this is mapped this way, so you can see a little bit if it's going to be correct, because if first name is mapped to a bunch of things that say first name, or if it's just name, like it'll show you a little bit more of where that is being mapped in other areas. From here, you can go into notes and questions, which will be a little bit after, but there's also table data, which is another screen that shows not the mapping information, but shows you the information on the actual table itself. So it shows you the source database, shows you the table names, the company, since there's a bunch of different insurance companies, it'll show you which one you're dealing with, the table definition for that table, the ID and version number. The version number is very important because every 6 months or so, the database itself gets an update, so the insurance claims can send, say, if they added new fields or if they deleted some that they don't use anymore, it'll update, and that's how you'll use the version number, because if you have version 2, say, doesn't have some of the information that you had from the other one, you know why it's now not included, or if it's deleted, or why it's not there anymore. You also have the dates that you added these, and the date refreshed. So on the top, it'll show you everything that you pulled in from your import screen, so you can actually see every table in there, and you can find the data on that specific table. And from here, you can get to notes and questions. So we kind of added these together as notes and questions because they generally have the same purpose. They both are going to list each of your notes or each of the questions up top. You can see them. It'll be in a list. There's only one there right now, but there will be a list of however many you have. This will also show you the target table ID, the target table name, and same thing with source and their fields. From here, it'll show you the date that you created that, who made it, the date that it was added, the type that it is, so it can be either, like for this one specifically, it is a table note, and it'll tell you a little bit of the subject of it, so it's easier to find up top, and the text that you have in your note. Same thing will be done with questions. Questions is if there's anything that hasn't been done or things that need to be done, why it isn't done yet, and you can find those through there. And from here, I'll hand it off to Marcus, and he will lead you through the demo of our application.
All right, meat and potatoes time. All right, so just when the user initially lands in the program, up top we have the taskbar. it has the file which leads to a quit option, or under programs, the various different field screens that Adam's just elaborated on. So just to begin with, we'll go into import, and we'll do create connection. So this, I'm going to maybe retread a little bit what Adam said, but this is basically how we can, it saves connections to actual database servers so that we can go in and keep dragging the table information out of them without having to re-enter all this information time and again. So we can add in the different fields, the connection name, the data source, the user ID, password, etc., etc. And once we have all this information filled in, we hit add connection or close if we decide we don't want to. So it's a little hard to see right there, but it just tells you that the connection has been saved. So now we'll go in, connect to database, and you can see the demo connection that we've just created is visible here. We're not going to use that one right now, but also note you can't go in and start editing these messy one at this point. So we'll just say connect to stage claim. So the stage claim is any of the databases that are not from South Coast, they're from the insurers or what have you. And so once we're in import, we have the option to start selecting some of these different tables. On the left, we have ones that we're not going to import in today. And by selecting one or more and hitting the move to the right button, we bring them into the area where it's indicative that these are ones we're going to be dragging into the system right now. We also have the option to select them and move them back. We save. We'll note the one thing we forgot. We didn't enter in a version number. That's, as Adam's mentioned, a pretty important thing. You can't really work with this without the versions. So it prevents you. We've entered one, saved, and it goes in, no issue. So we can close this now. And now the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes, the actual mapping. So just to start with, we'll be creating a new one. And we select the target tables, the South Coast tables that we'll be mapping to. It populates that. We select the tables that some of the ones we just imported, and that populates the drop-down, which has all the different fields from those tables those source tables we've pulled in. The one that we've selected up top of the database. So here the user goes in, they select ones that correspond, like for instance, just first name to first name, last name to last name, or what have you. From here, we can save the mapping. It's not complete, but we don't need to worry about that right now. So we give it a unique name, and again, a version number. Those are ever so important. Asterisk saying we've saved it. So now we also have the option to load previous mappings, and you can see the one that we've just put in there, and also a previous one. So we'll select one of those and just hit load map. And you can see it's populated it with something that's already been created. So why don't we select one of these rows and go into field details. This is a very useful thing. Okay, I should have spoken up. So all the information that's really not convenient to show in the mapping screen, we have in the mapping detail screen here. Things like the mapping type, we can change it in here, so direct, or others. That's basically a matter of data types. So it's not convenient to map, say, a var chart or an int or something like that. You're going to have to indicate that we need to change something by selecting that. We have the status, the ETL status. The status is, do we care about it right now? The ETL status is where in the actual business process we are for this particular mapping. We can also mess around with the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Yes, we also have the mapping name and such. Mapping details there is essentially a rationale. Why are we doing this the way we're doing it? So we can just type a little something in there. Up top, we have the option to save all of this. And it tells you it's saved successfully. And from here, we can go into typing stuff in here. Let's say we really don't like this table. We might say we really don't like this table. And obviously do something to make it a little more relevant, but that's just for an example. So once you have all, okay, okay. Again, you need to speak up. So once, well, yeah, you've already done it, but you have the option to save this. Now, any of this information you really can't go in and start changing. And we're gonna go out of this now. And now also we have questions, which again, it works in a very similar way. We have previous questions that we can look at the details of. And why don't we just go in and just say edit one of these questions. So when you create a new one, over on the right there, the answer text, that's, you can't do it because there's no point creating a question if you already have the answer. Once you edit it, you have the option to go in, put an answer in there. You can also change the status, so active to not active, we have the answer now. Also there's direction, so who am I asking? Is this going to someone in South Coast Health? Is this going to one of the insurers? That's what that's about. So we'll save this. Changes have been successfully saved. So why don't we get out of here, and we can close this, close mapping, and we'll go into table data. There we are. And so we can see all the tables, some of the tables that have been imported there are visible. We can go in and start viewing some of this. We can edit it. So we can change the active status, the table definition, the inclusion/exclusion criteria for it. And also from here we have the option to go into notes and questions, but nothing's particularly different between going to it from here versus from table detail, mapping detail rather. So we're going to assume now our user has done everything they need to do. They have the option to file, quit, and it just prompts you, are you sure? You never know, they could forget something. So we're just going to say yes. And it closes. Alright, so some of the tools we used, just as to lead into this, with the exception of Google Drive, all of this is the sort of the stuff that South Coast uses. It was a big requirement that we actually use these tools so that everything, without any hitches, can go right to the client and nothing's lost in translation or anything. No, go back. Thank you. So the big one is Visual Studio. Worked as our development environment. It's built-in source and team tools were fantastic. So all our Git was done through that. All our Scrum process was done with the tools in there. All that in the bag of chips. Our program interacts with Microsoft SQL Server, and everything was done in C# and within the .NET framework, particularly ADO.NET. And we used Google Drive for any miscellaneous documentation. All right, future work. One of the main ones is multiple users. So within notes and questions, it had something like, who created this note, who created this question. That's maybe not where we want it quite right now, but that would be a big thing to do. An admin feature to build onto that, to actually manage connections, particularly be able to say, to create new ones, to limit that to people who really know what they're doing. A matching algorithm, this is something that's a little bit beyond the scope of, well, more than a little bit beyond the scope of what we were really commissioned to do. It's something to kind of give pointers as to, okay, these ones will probably match up, these ones will probably match up, something along the lines of a machine learning algorithm. But again, that fell kind of outside the scope of what we were going to be able to do. Improved mapping details, Adam mentioned a place where it's been not quite where we would like it to be. And work tasks to be able to better keep track of the actual workflow of the entire process. Or at the very least, the ability to export all this work task information into some existing